welcome to this episode of the Stitch Sessions. I am really looking forward to getting you guys going on this week's tutorial. This is actually a special request from Terry. She recently saw a tutorial that I did on the linked double crochet stitch, and she was curious on whether or not we could use this to create a granny square motif. And the answer is absolutely yes. So although the linked stitch is a stitch that is meant to create a denser fabric and to kind of cozy up the stitches close together, the granny motif is generally kind of seen as a little bit more airy and lacy. But what I found is that we can use the linked double crochet stitch to create a much more kind of cozy bunched in shell stitch. So you can see the shell stitches are much more condensed, and that is because we've linked the double crochets in that shell stitch together. So I thought this was a great opportunity to check out a different type of stitch in our granny motif. For those of you that love granny motifs and granny squares, you might be interested in checking this out and see how you like it. So Terry, this is for you. And as always, if you guys have any suggestions, please do keep them coming. Put them in the comment box down below or pop me an email. Now let's get started on our linked stitch granny square. Okay, so to create our motif today, I'm just going to use some scrap yarn I've got left over. Many of you may recognize this. This is the last of this yarn. I used this in the SNUGGLY slippers tutorial, as well as the messy bun hat, the bobble messy bun hat. Wow, that is a tongue twister. I'll leave a link for those in the description box down below in case you're wondering. This is the last of it. It is ring spun by Loops and Threads. I'm not sure if they still have this yarn, just in case you're curious, but this is just some leftovers I'm using for this motif. Okay, and also if you're curious, I am using a 5.5 millimeter hook, which is also known as an I or a size 9. This is a medium 4-weight yarn, okay? And for any project, as always, make sure you have a pair of scissors and a darning needle on hand to snip off your yarn and sew in any ends. So let's get started creating our motif. So the linked stitch granny motif is done the exact same way you would do a traditional granny square. So we're going to start from the center and work our way out. You can certainly start in any method you wish. You can use the chain 5 method, or you can use the cinch circle method. I go back and forth depending on the motif and what I like to see. But generally for the traditional granny, I like to use the cinch circle method. So that is what I'm going to start with. I'm going to create a cinch circle. Okay, and for those of you that are super new and need to do this a little bit slower, I do have a lesson on how to create the cinch circle, and I'll leave that in the description box down below as well. But I'm going to do it nice and slow here. So what I've done is I've just wrapped the yarn around my 2 fingers here, and I take them out, so that creates a loop, okay? And it's basically going to look like I'm creating a slip knot. So I'm going to pull up a loop. The difference is I'm not going to cinch this circle shut. I want to leave it open. So this is where some people kind of find this awkward. And so I just kind of hold it like that. So see how I have that loop the whole time? And then I chain 1 right here. And now I've got a ring to work into. And I always like to just take this tail and make sure it stays on this side here. And this is the center of our granny square. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain up an additional 2, 1 and 2, and this is going to count as the height of a double crochet stitch. Now we are using a linked double crochet stitch for this project, okay? So we've got chain 3, and now what I'm going to do is in the second chain from the hook, so I never count the loop that's on the hook, I skip this one and I go into the second one, and I'm going to insert my hook there, and I'm going to pull up a loop. So I have 2 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to insert my hook into the circle, and I'm going to pull up another loop. Okay, so I have 3 loops on the hook now. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over again and pull through 2. And what that's done is that's created my first linked stitch. So you see that bar, that horizontal bar that goes across? That is the link that links the chain to the stitch. Now, we've used this stitch before. For those of you that have seen the loops and arrows throw, we used the linked double crochet, and in fact, that was worked in the round as well. And we also have a separate tutorial on the linked double crochet stitch itself if you want to get a little bit more familiar. And as always, all that info is in the description box down below. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to count that chain 3 as a stitch and then this second one as another stitch. So we still want to create our granny shells, and they are done in sets of 3 stitches. So we need to create one more stitch here, and we are going to use the linked double crochet. So that means to begin each linked double crochet, you want to find that horizontal bar, insert your hook there first to pull up your loop. Notice we did not yarn over, okay? Then I go into my ring, insert my hook, pull up a loop, and there are my 3 loops, okay? Now I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull through the first 2 loops, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the second 2. So that is technically my first shell, granny shell, using the linked technique, okay? 3 stitches in a row. Now we need to create a corner. So we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. For you tight crocheters out there, I recommend chaining 3. Some people chain 3 for their corners. And then we're going to go back into the same circle. And of course, because we're creating a space here, we don't have anything to link to, we're just going to place a regular double crochet. So we insert, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now, a regular double crochet has this bar that kind of twists across there. It's not quite horizontal, it's on an angle. We are going to insert our hook into that loop there, pull up your loop, and then go into the circle, to pull up your next loop. You'll then yarn over, okay, now, see that? That's a little boo-boo, you gotta watch that. Whenever you're working into a cinch circle, you want to make sure that you not only go into the circle, but you want to make sure that you work over that tail. This tail is what we use to cinch our circle shut. See that? That's what's going to cinch your center shut. So really be careful there. Work over both of those. Insert and pull up over both of them. Okay? 3 loops. Pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we've got our linked bar there. We go again. Insert into the bar, pull up a loop, go back into the circle, pull up another loop, and pull through 2 and resolve like a regular double crochet. So that is our next linked stitch shell. Okay, so you can see that there. They're being linked one to the other. This may create a bit of a tighter shell. So like I said, if chaining 3 helps you, then definitely chain 3. So my next corner is coming up here. So I'm just going to chain 2 because chain 2 works for me. And then I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to go into the circle and I'm going to place a double crochet. And then I'm going to link my next 2 stitches to this one. So I see that slanted bar there. Insert, pull up a loop. Go into the circle, pull up another loop, and now I resolve it like a regular double crochet stitch. Okay, and one more, into the vertical bar there, insert, pull up a loop, go back into the circle, pull up another loop, resolve my double crochet. Okay, and there is my next shell. Now you can really see the corners taking shape as they usually do. And so we have 4 shells generally in the first round of a granny. So we need 1 more. So we're going to create that next corner. 1, 2, and then back into that space, we do the same thing. A regular double crochet. Then we link it to the next stitch. So we insert, insert, and double crochet. Then we find the horizontal bar. We insert and insert and resolve. Okay. And now we need to, so you can see I can start to cinch up that center. So now we need to just create the last corner. So we're going to chain 2 again. And now we're going to find the very top of that chain 3, which is already linked to these other stitches. So there it is right there. And I try and get a couple of loops. But if you can't, it's not a big deal. And I'm going to slip stitch to join. Okay, so there is round 1 of my linked granny square created. I like how that creates a really nice texture there. And so if you use the chain 5 method, you're going to have a hole in your center, which a lot of people do. That's also typical of the traditional granny look. I, however, am going to take my tail and I'm going to cinch my center shut. Okay. And because this is a little bit of a thicker 4-weight yarn, it's not going to go perfectly, but it'll work. There we go. So that's how I like my grannies to look. I like them to be closed shut in the center, and that really allows for the corners to kind of come through. So that's round 1 complete. It may not look really any different, and the actual shape and motif itself is not going to look different than a traditional granny. What is going to create interest is the stitch that we're using to create our shells. And I think that's just going to create a really pretty pattern. So let's move on to round number 2. Okay, so for round number 2, what we want to do is let's slip stitch over to the next corner. I always like to begin and end all of my granny square motifs in the corners. So we're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch and slip stitch into the next one. And now we're going to work into the corner. So we're going to slip stitch there, and there we go. So now for round number 2, we start by creating our corners. So in every corner, we are going to place a shell, chain 2, and shell. Okay. I like to start my first corner a little different. I like to start halfway through the first shell. So that means I'm going to chain 5 to begin. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 3 of these chains counts as a double crochet or the height, and chain 2 is basically the corner or what bends to create the corner. Now I'm going to go back into that same corner space and place a double crochet like I normally would do. And I have to finish my shell stitch. So I'm going to link these stitches together. So I'm just going to go into that slanted bar, pull up a loop, and then go back into the space. So notice we're never really yarning over here for this stitch. Pull up 2, pull up 2. And then I go into that vertical bar, pull up and into that space, pull through 2 and pull through 2. So we've got a linked granny shell with a partial shell in that corner, and that's what creates that corner. So then we go into the next corner to create another corner. So round 1 was all about creating the sides and the corners. Round 2 is really about creating the corners so that you can build up from there. Okay, so now some people will chain 1 in between and then move on. I generally do not, but this will depend on if you are a tight crocheter or not. Okay, if you're a tight crocheter, I definitely recommend chaining 1. I usually don't, but because we are really snuggling our stitches in, I am going to chain 1 for this particular motif. Okay, because these are sitting quite tightly together. And now I'm going to move on into the corners. So I need to create a shell, chain 2, and shell. So here we go. We're going to insert our hook to place the first double crochet. And then we want to link it to the next 2 stitches of the shell. 1. So there's the second one. Now we're going to link it to create the 3rd stitch of that shell. Okay, now we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to do the same thing going back into that corner. Don't be afraid to push the stitches aside as you need. So we always start with a regular double crochet, and then we link the other 2 stitches to it. Okay, by the end of this project, you are going to be a pro at doing these linked shell stitches. Okay, so now we've done a full corner, so you can see what that does there. So you've got your chain 2, creates a nice sharp edge, and then we chain 1 and we move on to the next corner and we do the same thing. So if you need to, pause the video and just back up a little bit to see how this corner is done. You're going to repeat that into the next corner, chain 1 and repeat it into the next corner, chain 1, and I'm going to meet up with you when we're coming back to that kind of unfinished corner here. Okay, so I just completed my 4th corner there, or the 3rd full corner, I should say. I've chained 1 and now I'm ready to finish off round 2. So remember, we started a part of the corner. So what we're going to do is we need 2 more stitches in here to create that shell stitch. So we're going to go right into that space, and we are going to do a double crochet, and then we're going to link it to the next stitch, just like that. Okay, and now we're going to insert into that bar, and we're going to find the top of the chain 1, pull up a loop, and pull through 2, and then find the top of the chain 3, whoops, which is that next one there. Sorry, that was chain 2 I went into. And I'm going to actually slip stitch. So I'm going to pull it through these last 2 stitches here. Okay, so what that does is it links these 2 to the next 2. So you'll just notice that that bar just kind of creeps up there a little bit. I generally am not a fan of this attached method, and I have discussed this in my linked double crochet tutorial. But for the granny square, I find that it fits okay because it just butts up against that stitch really nicely, and it doesn't really kind of take my eye away from things. So I don't mind doing that at all. So that is the end of round 2 of your linked stitch granny. And again, it's still the typical motif, but your shell stitches are just creating this really cool little design with that horizontal bar going across. So I'm going to go on to round 3 just to take you through that. And then after this, all rounds will be a repeat of round number 3. So round 3 will begin by slip stitching into that corner. And then you're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're going to create a corner just like we did before. So you're going to double crochet, and then you're going to link it into the next 2 stitches, just like we've been doing so far. And then again, cross into the horizontal bar, into the space, and there you go. So that is how I like to start all of my corners. There, of course, are many different variations out there, but this is what I find to be the nicest for me and the easiest to do. So again, now we're going to chain 1 between all of our shells. So now we have a space before we get to the corner. So in every single space, you'll place a linked shell like you have before. You start off with a double crochet first, and then you link it into the next 2 stitches. So that's a linked double crochet there, and then another linked double crochet. So the linked stitch really creates a little bit of a denser fabric. So you can see the shells themselves are quite compact. Then you'll chain 1, and then you'll work your corner as you normally do. Okay, so I think you get the gist of that there. So you're going to link, and for those of you that are for those of you that are experienced crocheters, of course, you're going to zip right through this, no problem, but I am just making sure that you newbies out there still feel like it is doable. So that's why I like to go over some of these spots a few times with you. So there's my first shell. I've done my chain 2. I've gone back into that corner space, started with a regular double crochet. Then I go in through that horizontal bar, back into the space, and finish the next linked shell stitch. Okay, chain 1, and then I would work into my space here and continue as usual. And there you have it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish round 3. So you're going to repeat that. So you know what to do in your corners. Your linked shells in every space, corner, shell, corner, shell, and I will meet back up with you at the end of round 3 just to make sure that we go over that one more time, again, for those of you that are a little bit on the newer side. So press pause, finish round 3, and I will see you back here in a bit. Okay, so now I'm ready to finish off round 3. I've come back to that original corner. So again, I'm going to place a double crochet into that space. I'm going to now link to my next stitch, again, into that space. And now I need to link to my original chain. So what I want to do is I want to go into the second chain from the bottom. I think last time I said the first chain, sorry guys. So the second chain from the bottom, I will insert there. Whoops. So I'm going to go into the bar first, and I'm going to find the second chain from the bottom. I think last time I said the first. Sorry guys, it's the second. Pull up a loop. Pull through those 2. And now I'm going to find that third chain, which is the next one up. And I'm going to just pull through all 3. So it's basically like a big old slip stitch. Okay, so that links these together, creates a little bit more of a diagonal bar. The idea of the linking of the stitches is to create a nice closed, dense fabric. So in this case, we're doing it in our shell clusters, okay? And then of course, I would then continue again. I would slip stitch into the corner, and I would begin again. And that is how I would repeat every subsequent round after this. And again, a big thank you to Terry for requesting this tutorial. Again, it just allows you to create a little bit of a different texture for your shells, but the motif is generally the same as a granny. Now, if you guys have any questions, in fact, if you have questions or comments or requests or suggestions for future tutorials, don't be afraid to leave them in the comment box down below. Quite a few of you have, and I so appreciate that. And I look forward to tackling more of your suggestions. If you want to, you can also, as always, reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And don't forget to visit me on the website there at Crochet Crafty. And make sure you sign up for my monthly newsletter, because I also give away a free written pattern every month as a thank you for coming along and hanging out with me. And you can also find me on all the socials. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. And please do tag me when you've created a project using one of my designs. I am always curious to see how you guys use your colors and what colorways you use. If you use solid colors, variegated, self-striping, I think it always adds so much interest to any design. So there you have it. Stay tuned for more crochet tutorial fun. You guys know I upload every Wednesday morning. And if you're new here, your best bet is to click the subscribe button and click the notification bell. And that way it just reminds you every time I've uploaded a brand new video so you don't miss a single one. In the meantime, everyone, have a great day. I hope you're continuing to take good care of yourselves. Happy crocheting, and I will see you guys in next week's session. Bye-bye.